I'll show you, John. I won't be talking to anybody when the feed starts moving. Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm suddenly wondering if this sweater was the best idea. I was really cold earlier. I remain cold. I get cold like in the middle of October, and I don't warm up again until like May. Yeah, I know. No mug. Sorry. Eric Hofstetter sent me a fantastic mug, and I finished my coffee like an hour ago and didn't really feel like making more because what I need today is to be more keyed up. So I just have water today. I'm sorry. But thank you for the mug. I was telling everybody about it. I think I actually mentioned it. I think it was last week's in a few minutes. I don't know if you heard that one, but I talked about it with Mike Mike Rose. Right. Let's do a thing. I don't know. Andrew says hi, Mac. Is there a Mac here, or are you talking to me, Andrew? I'll find out later. Let's go ahead and do a thing. I'm not going to say it, Bill, but I'm thinking it. You know what I'm thinking. Terrible, awful, and totally true. It is Monday, the 23rd of November, 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. There's a thing that happens before the show every day. Hi, everybody. Ken Ray. Thanking you very much for downloading this audio edition. If you're downloading the audio edition, if you're watching on YouTube later, thanking you as well. And the people who are here live right now, we've just created a vortex in time because no, we're not by the time the other people hear this. And yet, thank you as well. There's a thing that goes on right before the show where I kind of chat briefly to anybody who's standing by for the live show. And there's a thing that I always say that I don't think I've ever said during the show, but I say it in the pre show. And that thing is, I have no idea how this is going to go. So, Bill, that one's for you. Second part of the show today, we're going to do a tiny bit of feedback. We might actually talk about the disposability of music. I'm not sure because that's something that's just been kicking around in my head for the past 10 or 15 minutes. I got caught on a couple of things earlier in the day, though, and I kept trying to find something else to talk about than the thing that kept putting itself in my head. And finally, I guess about an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half, I was just like, well, that's the thing that wants to talk. So why am I fighting it? There were two possible titles for today's show, either the one that I said at the top, terrible, awful, and totally true. The other one was When Good Things Happen for Bad Reasons. Piper Sandler analyst Harsh Kumar is my hero today. he uh, he is my hero for saying something that I haven't heard a lot of other people say. Now, I will say I said it on last week's in a few minutes, and I'm not saying, he's my hero because he agrees with me. It felt weird when I said it last week as well, and yet not incorrect. Apple 3.0 had Kumar answering a couple of questions from clients. One was on valuation, and the other one was on the Mac and the iPad. The valuation one is kind of interesting. I will tell you honestly, as long as I've been reading what a lot of the financial analysts say and watching what happens with Apple shares and things like that, there are a lot of terms that I don't completely understand. And I know valuation is one that I've looked up a number of times, and still, after a while, it kind of escapes me. And yet, I found his answer on valuation interesting. This is not why he's a hero, but I found his answer on valuation interesting. Basically, some of his clients think that Apple is a bit too hot right now based on 5-year averages. Another one of those things I don't understand. But here's what he came back and said. Basically, he's not saying completely ignore the past, but he's saying that new things that Apple has done might mean we need to think about Apple in new ways or in different ways. So things like, in our eyes, Kumar says, the rise of wearables and services, both of which are extremely profitable, could be a catalyst for the multiple change along with the 5G iPhone launch. That's amazing to me because you will get some analysts like Katie Huberty and Daniel Ives and a few others say this services thing is a real thing, but, a lot of times, you also get the Tony Sacconaghi saying, "Well, Apple is still an iPhone business." And certainly, iPhone is still a part of Apple's business, but if you are somebody who says Apple is still an iPhone company, then probably you're somebody who was saying 3 years into the iPhone that Apple is still an iPod company. What's funny to me too is he's saying, you gotta think, new things like wearables, right? Apple Watch was introduced in 2015. I think it came out in 2016, or maybe it was introduced in 2014 and came out in 2015. There's new, and then there's new. I've had my AirPods for at least 2 years now, maybe longer, I can't remember. It's my first pair of AirPods. We're up to what? The second set of AirPods and AirPods Pro, I believe now. Plus, they got the Beats thing, which they also bought 5 years ago. It's new, relatively speaking. None of that is what makes Kumar a hero. Here's what makes Kumar a hero to me. We also got a lot of calls on the sustainability of recent iPad and Mac strength, which have both benefited from the pandemic. Investors are concerned about the sustainability of these product families in the post-COVID world. Which world is that? Given the massive amount of upgrades and new purchases the company has seen over the last few quarters, we think it is hard to deny that those two business units will likely slow down at some point. However, we do note the pandemic has driven a significant increase in the install base, potentially driving a step function increase in future upgrade cycles moving forward. The part that makes him my hero is the part where he said, which have both benefited from the pandemic. And I hate it. Talked about it last week with Mike Rose on In a Few Minutes. And we talked about the fact that Tim Cook said that Apple had delivered, massive iPad and Mac sales despite the pandemic. Or maybe it was actually during the One More Thing event where he said they had done that despite the pandemic. And I argued and said I would argue that they've done it because of the pandemic, because people have gone inside, because people are trading up on their computers, because people need these things they didn't need before. And nobody wants to say that something good came of this because it sounds like you're wishing for it, or it sounds like you're rooting for it, and you're not. It is not rooting for something to say it's true. TechCrunch ran a headline that made no sense to me, and this is actually what kicked off this line of conversation today. Despite pandemic, forecasts predict U.S. online holiday sales increase of 20 to 30% or more. Not despite, because. Now, it turns out what they were actually trying to avoid saying was that retail sales are expected to go up this year. That is according to the National Retail Foundation and National Retail Federation and eMarketer. Those are two different organizations, and they're split on how things are going to go up and why things are going to go up and stuff like that. But to say, despite the pandemic, more people are going to be buying online, you're trying to avoid saying something unpleasant. Now, I'm not saying you should walk around being unpleasant, but and this is where it sort of trips in my head a bit, and this is where I might get a little bit ranty. If we can't talk about the real reason that economics are moving, we can't talk about the real stuff that we really need to talk about, like wear a freaking mask, like wash your freaking hands, as Webb Bixby says. Like, don't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. I just saw the most recent map of containment in the U.S., and there is none, except for Hawaii. So we all need to go there. There's nothing pleasant about saying that something pleasant came from this bad thing. There's nothing good about it at all. And what I would rather see is Apple tank and we get to go outside and play. I like going to bars. I haven't been to one since November of last year, I think. Just timing. It was just timing. Some friends of mine went to LA. I went to LA to meet them. We hung out for like a night or two and hit a bunch of bars, and that was fun. And that's the last time I was able to do that. I like going to Disneyland. Haven't been able to do that in 9 months. We need to be able to say what's true. Because if we don't, then we can't get to what we actually need to do. And I know it seems strange to make that leap based on a botched headline from TechCrunch, because that was a botched headline. Because they do go on to say that retail sales are expected to go up this year. And what's going to drive them up is online shopping. You can't say despite the pandemic forecast predict U.S. online holiday increase of 20 to 30%. Online sales go up anyway. Now, here's the other reason that you might want to tread gingerly near that headline. There are over 20 million people who lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. There is an eviction crisis coming. There are people literally lined up in food lines. And I will say, and okay, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like one of these guys actually said one of the reasons that you might actually see an increase in online sales is because people didn't go vacationing. People have actually scaled back some other spending, either just as the way things normally go, or because they didn't go on vacation. And so they may have more money to spend this year. You may be looking at a little bit of retail therapy, which I hadn't actually hit on or talked about in anything else that I've done. But there is the fact that a lot of people didn't spend they didn't dispose of their disposable income in the same way. It feels atrocious. It feels absolutely terrible to say that there are people with more disposable income while we're saying there are more people in literal food lines. It doesn't make it not true. And maybe we need to say that kind of thing too, because then maybe if we surface that talk, if we make people, understand that those things are actually happening, then maybe we, prod somebody somewhere who can actually do something, once they get back from Thanksgiving vacation. Maybe we can actually prod somebody to do something about the people that are really in need right now. Which, I'm sorry, could be any of us at any time. Not any of us at any time, because I know some people are better with money and have saved more and have done more lucrative things in their lives, right? I don't want to talk about me. Things, honestly, when we went into lockdown, I wasn't sure how this year was going to go for the stuff that I do. Largely thanks to people like you showing up and listening. And thanks to the relationship we have, somehow everything I had did not dry up. Somehow advertising actually increased a bit for me. And I can't tell you how I don't want to say lucky because I have worked towards it. I don't want to say blessed because I feel like that's overused. There was no telling in April how the rest of this year was going to go. And I would imagine that's true for a lot of people listening right now too, or a lot of people watching right now too. I don't know, maybe we need to talk about the fact that it's not true for everybody. Maybe we need to write about it. Maybe we need to send postcards or something. I don't know. I did mention, by the way, on Twitter that this might get a tiny bit ranty. Anyway, I think we're done with that part for now. Harsh Kumar. And what I want to say is we should all start harshing. I don't have a thing to ask you to do in the middle of the show, so let's just go straight to feedback and maybe play with a music idea really quickly. Roger was kind enough to write to me over the weekend. Roger, who may be in the chat room, I'm not sure, but right towards the end of the show last week, Roger started talking about differences in the way that music is engineered and processed, because we were talking last week about the HomePod Mini, which I find to be an absolutely fantastic device. While in some ways I am an audiophile, at least in terms of production and things like that, and the podcasts I produce and what's an acceptable level of audio quality for me when I have control over it. Like if something goes wrong in a YouTube feed, there's nothing I can do because I got no control over that. If I'm engineering a podcast for somebody else or for myself, there are things that I'll do. So Roger started talking last week about why he can't stand HomePod. I don't remember if I asked him to send me more on that or not, but he went ahead and decided to send me more on that anyway. Channel separation. Music recorded in stereo splits the audio into left and right channels. In some music, bands use this to create a spatial effect to the music by having certain instruments play predominantly through one channel or the other. Sitting in front of a pair of three-way speakers, each cabinet has a high, mid, and low frequency speaker. You might get the sensation that the guitar is to the right and the bass guitar is to the left. It creates the feeling of being in front of a live band to an extent. I'm not laughing at that. I'll tell you why I'm laughing in a minute. Also, some recordings create motion by having an instrument come in on one side and then move across the channels. When you have a speaker set up with only one subwoofer, low frequency, the low end part of the music can't be split. Music recorded in more recent years is generated towards this kind of setup, where music recorded pre-1990, let's say, is not. Most of my music is older, he continues, or by bands who started in the 70s and kept doing those things with the recordings. This is why I generally don't like modern audio solutions and prefer three-way cabinet speakers and over-the-ear headphones, wired, of course. I'm with you, except I'm not. That's the thing. She shall have music wherever she goes. That's the whole, like, with rings on her fingers and rings on her toes, right? Or rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. Can't remember which. Um, we've traded fidelity for convenience. I know this was a thing that actually Neil Young was railing against when he tried to do the Pono player. The problem is we all have phones that play music for us now. And for most people, that's fine. I appreciate what you're talking about. And the reason I was laughing in the middle of what Roger had written was because I was joking with Jeff Gamet on an upcoming episode this week of In a Few Minutes, where I said the best way to listen to something these days is to just hold your, iPhone 11 or later, just like right in the middle of your forehead with each speaker on either side. So you get stereo sound. It's not really a great way to do it, but Roger's a music file. And I miss that. I miss that for myself. I used to have nothing as good as what he's talking about, but I used to have a decent stereo system where, I would actually position it so I had one speaker in just the right place, the other in just the right place. And when the music hits you in that way, in a way that's different from headphones, it's fantastic. And I wonder where we lost that. I think it might have been actually with the CD player. It's easy to say it was with iTunes and with ripping MP3s, and certainly it degraded past that. I'm not even talking about sound quality. I mean, the music experience, you could argue, degraded past that. But I really think the problem was when we went to CDs and liner notes got that big. And for people who are not watching, I'm making a relatively small square with my hands. Because it used to be, you'd open the album and you'd read the liner notes, you'd look at the art, and it was, it was big, and you could get lost in the stereo sound and the art and all of it. Music itself did not become disposable, but it became more of a thing, which on the one hand is great. The second I want to hear something, I got Roger's email, and he was talking about bands that do that kind of thing, and I was immediately put in mind of ELO and Calling America. And I called out to my HomePod Mini, using its proper name, of course. I called out to my HomePod Mini and said, "Hey, play that thing," and it did. And on the one hand, it can't be nearly as magical as my dad's speakers, which are about this high, and I'm now holding my hand about waist high, maybe a bit higher. Oh no, much higher actually. It can't sound nearly as good as it would on my dad's speakers. Of course, ELO would never play on his stereo, but that's a different thing. Not nearly as magical as that. At the same time, 100% magical that you can just say to the air, "Hey, play me that thing." You gave me stuff to think about, Roger. I do appreciate that. And I don't disagree with you, except for the part where I don't agree with you either. Right. I think it's good to end with the music talk instead of ending with harshing, because I don't know. I feel better. Hey, if you have something you would like to hear me talk about here, Wednesday, by the way, on this show. So we're doing a short week this week because of the holiday. I'm not going to be going live Thursday or Friday, because Thursday I'm going to be eating, and Friday I'm going to be recovering from eating. and also the 5K that I'm going to do because of my Apple Watch. If there's a particular thing you would like to do, or maybe a question you'd like to ask or something, I would love to turn Wednesday's show over to whatever it is you want to hear or talk about. Because I'll be honest, I'm halfway to holiday already. So if you got a thing, info at macosken.com would be the thing to do. Info at macosken.com. You know, ask me something about Apple stuff. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. Ask me something about podcasting. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. Actually, that one I might just make an answer up. Your choice. So info at macosken.com. I would love it if you would program Wednesday's show, because I'm going to be done, whether I'm actually done or not. Hey, don't forget, for the next couple of days, we're doing this live on YouTube, youtube.com/Ken Ray. We go live at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. Of course, we'll be back to a full week next week. But hey, maybe you've already checked out for the holidays too and got nothing to do at 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, or 6:30 in the afternoon. youtube.com/Ken Ray. If you're in the chat room, please stay in the chat room. I'll be by there momentarily. If you're not in the chat room, well, we'll miss you. Talk to you soon. Hey, I recorded. Didn't even need anybody to ask me. Right, where are we? Where is the 5K because of the Apple Watch? What is the 5K because of the Apple Watch? So Neil, normally I go back to the top and start reading, but that one just happened to catch my eye. Apple does, those activity challenges. And for most, 2016, 2017, and 2019, they did a 5K challenge for Thanksgiving. Walk, run, wheelchair. And then you get like an award, virtual. Hey, I didn't bring my phone with me, so I can't show it to you easily. Oh, well, I'm sure it's fine. Anyway, so that's it. It hasn't popped up on the watch yet, but somebody, can't remember if it was Mac Rumors, somebody, called to Mac maybe, ran a piece saying it was going to happen, which is not uncommon, that some site will say, hey, here's a thing coming up, and then it'll pop on your watch and say, hey, here's a thing that's happening, for whatever reason. All right, now I'm going back to the top of the page and seeing who said what. Hank's here, Nate's here, Frank's here. Actually, I don't know if all these people are still here. There's Chuck. There's John, who I addressed earlier. Matthew. Bill. Okay. I'm going to start reading actual comments now instead of just names. Unless I see a new name, in which case I'll say, hey. Hey, that's right. Eugene actually sent me a message saying that hit me up on Twitter saying he had ordered the Mac Mini. It's so weird because you wrote that and you said that you accidentally did that. I just can't imagine anymore having a desktop computer, because I take this all over the house. And I know I have had a desktop computer and a laptop. I had my PowerBook G4 and an Intel iMac at the same time. And I would love the big speaker, but I guess I could just, I could get a big display, but I could get a big display and let this run it. Except, of course, for the part where it would start my fan going. All right, never mind. You've talked me into it. It's not going to happen. Not yet, anyway. Maybe one day. Hey, Neil. Neil is a new name here. Not new. Or I don't know. Neil, have you ever been here before? Neil is new in the list. I didn't say Neil's name earlier, is what I meant. All goo. I think he meant all good. Sold it on eBay. No, it's downstairs next to my coffee maker. Hey, Web Bixby's in the house. Got your email, Web. Thank you very much. Big fan of yours. Hey, Donna's here, or was here. I don't know if she still is or not. Haha. Matthew says, I wonder if Apple will do another commercial that says, what's a computer, right? Computers are back, baby. Would it be great if Sakanagi, like 2 years from now, is like, yeah, Apple's totally a computer company. I don't know what they're going to do now. That's not what he talks like, by the way. Containment map. Yeah, there you go. That's a great phrase. Moats, they aren't just for castles anymore. That's what Bill says. Disneyland withdrawal. Yeah. Yeah. On the way. Okay. Frank, you typed an enormous bag of herd is OJ the way. And I was like, what is? You meant on, which I get now. Nate thinks I should rant more. Dude. Ranting is when I can't make it work. You know, that's a problem. Didn't do the mini yet, says Eric, but at 3 of those, you could get $99 could get 3 for the cost of the original. That's true. I've got a friend who's already got 2, and he's got a HomePod Mini, or maybe he went ahead and got 2 HomePod Minis to make them the speakers on his desk, and he's still thinking about getting 2 more. And I'm pretty sure he lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. I say I want music everywhere I go, and that's one of the reasons I'm willing to sacrifice sound quality, although certainly I've lived with worse sound than the HomePod or the HomePod Mini. But man, a 1-bedroom apartment and like 6 smart speakers. Come to think of it, though, I think Jeff Gamet might see that he's got the same setup later this week. Not with the HomePod Mini. Yeah. I would love more spatial audio stuff. Nate says that spatial audio is like being sat at the sweet spot of his 5.1 setup with the volume cranked up. Yeah. I'd love more of that. Frank says torrents degraded everything. They degraded everything, but it was already degraded. The musical experience was already degraded a bit, I think, by having it. I really think the liner notes had something to do with it. It's like pairing a good wine and food. If the music is great, I mean, unless the whole point is like, I will call it the White Album so that people know what I'm talking about, but Frank knows it's actually just called the Beatles, right? Unless your point is to do something like the White Album or like, Spinal Tap's Smell the Glove, where the question is, how much more black can it be? And the answer is none more black. I feel like you kind of lose something. We don't look at the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, right? I'm trying to think of what else I liked when I was a kid that had those kind of the cover of Synchronicity. Okay, so maybe it was actually the cassette that started to kill it, but I did have the vinyl album. The cover of Synchronicity, studying those pictures, it's fantastic. Or the cover of the They Might Be Giants album, They Might Be Giants. Bit of a crackle on the mic. That actually could be my mouth, Nate. Sorry if that's the case. That's another problem with live. You see, that's an interesting point, Chuck. I never would have. Chuck says I listen to more music now than before, but it's more different music because of the streaming music. I love the radio stations that the different services set up because, if they're good, because they help me find new people. And then the problem is I get stuck on those people. Like 07 is one of my favorite acts now. I discovered them through one of the streaming music services like 5 or 6 years ago. But then when iTunes very helpfully goes through at the end of the year and says, here's what you listened to most this year, for the past 4 years, it's been 07. And it's been the same playlist over and over again because I found them and I love them. But without the convenience of, music wherever you go, I wouldn't have found them. Frank, are you saying you bought a HomePod Mini for your sister and for your brother for Christmas? Oh, cool. I hope they enjoy them. Saw some article about HomePod Minis giving people Wi-Fi trouble. I didn't have a problem at all, but I'm wondering if it's because I was able to just copy my HomePod information from one to the other, or just copy it from my phone. I don't really know. Haven't checked it out. Hey, Paul's here for the first time. Hey, Paul, is this really your first time here? Well, I'm going to call you out anyway. It's too late for that. I'm glad you're here. I hope you didn't just get here, though, because we're done, I think. It's good to see you, though. I hope the Pacific Northwest is treating you well. There, I just called you out twice, proving that I actually know who the heck you are. There you go. Oh, you've watched the recorded versions. Okay. Well, yeah, they're better because they have the special effects. I do so much stuff in post. It's not true. Yeah, sorry about that, Paul. It's about a half-hour thing. So, yeah, I'm on my way out the door, actually, because I've got an interview coming up in an hour. I had said that I was hoping to talk to Patrick Wardle about the whole thing with the firewall and Apple. And he is joining me for this week. Well, no, I'm interviewing him today, but it's going to be on next week. But that's coming up. And then I got to go to the grocery store and pick up my turkey because, yeah, that needs time to thaw. And we're that close. And that's why I'm saying, please send me questions for Wednesday because I'm already, you know what this is right here? This is a recipe for the corn casserole that I'm making because I'm there now. Okay. I'm here, but I'm there. So, yeah, info@macosken.com. Paul, I'm sorry you caught the very end of it. And I do hope you can join us again soon. Everybody else? Well, everybody, actually. Paul, too. Not every. Don't tell Paul. Talk to you guys tomorrow.